Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to teach you how to switch frames in Python using TKinter. So this is a small example that I created so you can see how this works. This is page number 1. If I click the enter button, it takes me to page 2. And if I click the enter button here, it takes me to page 3. And if I click the enter button again, it takes me back to page 1. So you can bounce around between pages. You don't necessarily have to go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. You can go from like page 1 to page 10, for example. This is very useful if you want to create a project that's more than one page. For example, I created an ATM machine. I had the user enter their username and password in one page, and if they entered it correctly, then I let them into the ATM machine. There they were able to access more pages like the account balance page, withdraw page, and deposit page. Not only is this useful, but it's actually very easy to use, especially with the way that I'm going to teach you in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to teach you how to switch frames in Python using TKinter. Let's get started. First thing we want to do is import TKinter. Let's create an instance of this module. And let's call in the main loop method. Let's create a frame now. Let's call it frame 1. And we want this to be in our window. Let's give it some color. I'm gonna make it red. All right, let's place this in the window. We're gonna use the grid method. And I'm gonna place this in row 0, column 0. And I'm also gonna give it a sticky. And we're gonna set this equal to north, south, east, west. And that's because we want this frame to basically mold into the size of the window. Let's run this. Let's expand this. And notice that our frame isn't showing up. And that's because we basically have to give it permission to show up on the window. So we're going to use two methods for this. One is called row configure. This takes two parameters. First one is 0 and the next one is weight. We're going to set that equal to 1. And the next method is column configure. This takes in the same parameters. So these two are going to make sure that when we expand the window, our frame expands along with the window. Let's run it again. Now when we click on this, we're able to see the frame. But notice that we had to click on this button in order for us to see the window. Well, we want that to happen automatically, so we're going to use another method here. This one is called state. And we're going to include zoomed in there. So when we run it again, our window expands to its full size. All right. So we can get rid of this red here. I was just using that so you can see what was happening. Now let's create a few more frames. So this is frame 2. And this is going to be frame 3. And now we're going to use a for loop to place these on the window all at the same time. And here we have to add the name of each frame. And we're going to change this to frame. So now when we run the project, it's going to place all of these frames in our window right on top of each other. Because notice that we place them in the same location. So they're all in row 0, column 0. So when this loop is done looping, frame 3 is the one that's going to pop up on the screen, but that's not necessarily the one that we want to see when we run the project. So we have to create a function and we have to tell it which frame we want to display on the screen. So let's create that function up here. Let's call it show frame. This is going to take an argument frame, and this is the frame that we're going to pass on to this function, and this is the frame that we want to display on the screen. So we're going to use TKraise for this. Let's make a function call to this down here. And let's pass in frame number 1. So that's the one that we're going to see when we run the project. If we run it right now, we won't be able to see anything because none of the frames have any code in them. So let's add some code to each one of the frames. So this is going to be frame 1 code. And let's give this frame a title. we're going to use a label for this. We want it to say this is frame 1. And let's give it some color as well. Let's make this one red. I'm going to give this a fill. I'm going to set this equal to X. All right, let's give it a button as well. And when the user clicks on this button, let's send them over to another frame. So we're going to use the show frame function here. And let's send them over to frame 2. And let's copy and paste this. So we're going to do this for frame 2 and frame 3 as well. Let's make this one yellow. And let's send over the user to frame number 3 when they click on this button. So let's do this again for frame 3. I'm going to make this one green. And let's send the user back to frame 1 when they click on this particular button. Let me make this a little bit smaller for you guys, just in case you can't see everything that's on the screen. All right, that's a little bit better. I'm going to separate this. And let's go ahead and run this. All right, so this is frame 1. When I click on this button, it's going to take me to frame 2. And when I click on this, it's going to take me to frame 3. And when I click it again, it's going to take me to frame 1. So that's how it works. Pretty simple. This is the easiest way that I found to do this so far. I've actually made a tutorial before on how to create an ATM machine, and I use a different method. But I thought it was a lot more difficult to use that particular method. So maybe some people might look at that and be like, man, I'm not going to do all that. That's way too much work. And I mean, I understand, but that's why I made this video. So if you guys want to learn how to switch frames, you could use this code and it's a lot more easy to understand. But now let me show you a real example of how I use this code so you can see how you can use this. And this is actually the other way that I know how to do this. But as you can see, it looks a little bit complicated. But that's probably because we're using classes. So that's probably what makes it look a little bit more complicated. But really, it's the same thing. So let me go ahead and run this. And this is a little ATM machine. If you guys want to learn how to make this, I'll leave a link in the description to the playlist for this tutorial. So if I enter the correct password, it's going to take me over to this frame. So this is a completely different frame than the one that you just seen. And this is going to take me to another frame. And this is going to, after I enter an amount, it's going to take me back to this frame. And then we have this frame as well. This is the deposit frame. And then we have the balance frame. And this takes us back to the beginning. So yeah, that's the purpose of this tutorial, to teach you how to switch between frames or pages, whatever you feel like calling it. And yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys.